I'm going to be giving you a painfully honest review of the Smittybilt X2O 17,500 pound winch that I bought from Amazon several months ago. I just recently more installed it a matter of a few months ago. Ultimately, spoiler alert, this is not the winch that I want for the future, but it's the winch that I have, and it will work for now. So for the price, I don't think it's that bad of an option as a price, but we'll get into this, and you can tell me in the comments below if you would be interested in a winch like this or maybe not. So to begin with, the reason why I even had to get a new winch like this was because my worn winch, which was a 15,000 pound winch, which also matched and actually I believe was built to go with the switch and go rail system that's 15,000 pounds, that was starting to fail. That was starting to really have some troubles, and so I did not want to get caught with a winch that did not work, that sort of worked, that was not reliable. So I started looking online. Where can I get a winch? I looked at the Harbor Freight winches that are 12,000 pounds, 10,000 pounds, whatever it is, and I was less than impressed with those. I looked all over Amazon, I looked on a few other websites, and it was very challenging to find something that was interesting to me enough to really dive into the research of it. So I came to this Smittybilt somewhat because of the price, but mostly because it was wireless. I needed something that was going to be wireless so that, you know, I don't have a cord running all the way up the hoist as it's going up into the air. I needed it to be wireless. I needed it to be, in my opinion, maybe even more than 15,000 pounds, which this is by a bit, with the idea that the more weight it could pull, a lower weight is going to pull less of a load, and ultimately, you know, down the road, it's going to last longer and perform better and all of those things. So that was my intent going forward with getting this winch. However, there were some things that I did not anticipate, possibly might have stopped me from buying it if I had known. Possibly not. Leave that to you to judge on that. This winch, like many winches out there, do not have a cable tensioner. Now maybe this is normal to you and it's an expected thing, but to me it was kind of a shock because my worn winch, which was older, it didn't have very many layers of cable to begin with, so I never really experienced it. But the ability for the cable to keep tension and for things to be even, as you can kind of see, there are some of these layers that are sort of loose, some that are very tight, some that are starting to even be deformed a little bit because they've been kind of caught up in some of these things. And so, which is a whole other issue. The cable quality, I think, is from China, and yeah, just enough said on that. But this does not have a cable tensioner, and so there can be times, there have been times, especially more earlier on when things were looser in general altogether, where there would be little slags of I don't know what you want to call it, little things where it would be loose and they would catch, and so the dumpster would be coming up or down, and it would catch up with itself and it would jolt the dumpster a little bit. Now, not enough by any means to be a danger to the cable coming off of the hook or anything like that down below, but certainly not what I want, not what I expect from a piece of equipment that I would want to have long term. So didn't have the cable tensioner. It is wireless. It does have a cable as well, similar, like a mic cable basically. You would see maybe connected to a microphone on like a stage. You're able to do that. However, if you were to use the wireless option, this remote does not have much of a battery life, let me tell you. A handful of days, maybe even less, of using it several times back and forth, multiple dumpsters. Doesn't matter if it's a light load, a heavy load. The battery in this remote, which is a fairly uncommon, I think it's a 23A or 23 battery, does not last a significant amount of time, let me tell you. From multiple places, multiple brands, does not last long. I didn't know if it was because I maybe left on the wireless little on button or not or something. That has nothing to do with it. That changed nothing. The battery has died just as quickly each time, and basically in the middle of pulling the cable up or down or whatever you're doing, it'll just cut off, and you'll have to hit the button again to turn it to go to green, and then within a matter of seconds it'll turn itself off again. And you'll just have to keep going back and forth, tapping the button on as you're kind of granny pulling it up or down to the position you need it at. So that's concerning. I now have a large container of brand new batteries ready to go in the truck. I'm assuming the heat this summer is not going to be friendly to those batteries. I may end up bringing that with me in and out of the truck into the house, or just keep a few with me instead of the whole package. I don't know. That's definitely a problem. The battery life on the remote, when you're using the wireless setting, that's not very good. Just completely honest, it's not going to last that long. I mean, when it has power, it's got power. There's no issues, there's no intermittent problems. But as far as the battery dying, when it dies, it dies. And so the wireless aspect of it with the battery, the cable, which is not really, I mean, mostly it's okay, but as you can see, there's some spots here. That is not gonna be good down the road. Now I already do have, when I was still deciding whether I was going to stay with the Warn winch and just maybe have it worked on, because they can be rebuilt, I actually bought another cable, same size, diameter, same length, the whole thing, of a cable that I've got in my garage. So at any point in time, if this gets sketchy, or if this gets whatever, I can absolutely replace this. Shouldn't be a problem at all. But this is definitely straight from China and less than what we're looking for. I'll just tell you that. With the cable, like I had mentioned, there is no cable tensioner. So normally a cable tensioner would be maybe from, basically it would replace this piece here, and then there would be a spring and a plate that goes across these cables, and then the spring holds it down to where there's tension, go figure, in the name, holding everything down. Well, because there has not been tension, you can see some of the damage, the perimeter. Now I don't know if this is common to every single winch out there, but you can see the perimeter. It has been rubbing, it has caught, it has messed some things up, even back on the bottom there. So that's definitely something that's a concern. One thing I did note that I thought was interesting, and I even called the manufacturer. I called Smittybilt and confirmed this. Said, hey, my Warn winch had 8 bolts. So I did have to drill some holes through this pretty ridiculous plate. It had 2 and then 2 on both sides for the Warn winch. Well, this has the same size bolts, but there's 4 of them, and then there's 4 smaller ones. And so I asked the guy on the phone, I said, hey, do I need to drill these smaller holes to be able to do all 8? And the guy said, no, you only need 4. And so I thought, okay, so is Warn just overkilling it? Like, what is the difference? And so when I first started doing some dumpsters with this winch, let me tell you, I was pretty concerned, making sure that this winch was not going to shear off, the bolts were not going to go, they were the same grade 8 or 10 or whatever it is. It matched the Warn winch as well, but making sure this thing actually was safe and secure, going through the full plate, making sure they didn't get loose. None of that, no issues on that aspect. Despite some of these issues that I've come across after simple wear and tear and use of this winch, with the cable tensioner that's problematic as far as slack being created, potentially damaging the cable as far as long-term use goes, and those things, as well as the battery life on the remote, and then just the overall cable quality. For the money you're paying for this Smittybilt 17,500 pound winch, I think it's not a permanent solution for dumpsters, for whatever you're potentially using it for, but it definitely is going to be a mid-tier, we'll say, quality of a winch and setup. For me, I don't plan on using this winch, or certainly the cable, for too long. Certainly this cable is being replaced with the one that I bought from the worn winch from before. Brand new cable. I believe it's going to be a better quality cable to begin with. I'm going to be looking into the cable tensioner that's actually made by a different manufacturer altogether that might work for this 8-inch gap in between here. That might be an option for me. Overall, I paid a little over $600 for this winch. As far as I can tell, it's structurally sound. It has pulled everything I had asked it to pull, including the 36 dumpsters of concrete that almost all of those loads, I replaced it right at the beginning of that job, pulling those concrete dumpsters. It pulled everything without a problem at all. There was no issues or concerns or overheating, or I press the button and the battery works and it still doesn't pull. It pulled. I mean, it pulled the cable in, absolutely. So overall, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I've got some reservations as far as some of the quality of the cable, and maybe just the engineering of not having a tensioner on this, and maybe I have too high of expectations for this. But I think it's reasonable, in my opinion, still, to expect some type of cable tensioner, even if you don't include that in the purchase price. Maybe have an additional, add-on. I'm going to find a way to somehow manufacture a cable tensioner onto this setup here, even for the short term, using this winch. Ultimately, I would love to go back to a worn winch that has the cable tensioner, that's able to, I mean, their name is worth a lot of money, but it also speaks for itself. There's a reason why they are pretty much the top dog out there as far as winches go, and everybody knows the name. Would I pay for this again? $600 for what I got, for what I have received over the last couple months of using this winch. Depending on your situation and what your goals are, and what you're wanting to actually, be able to go with down the road. Yes, in some aspects, and no in some others. A $2,500 worn winch is not happening for me right now. It's just not. Okay. My old one being rebuilt, and finding somebody to even do that, because I don't know, and I'm not going to put everything on myself like that. A $600 from Amazon winch that is able to technically do a lot more than what I'm even would ever ask it to do, to put up with a cable that's less than ideal, but you could easily replace it with a quality cable, no problem at all. Same 1/2-inch cable, 50 foot long, I believe. That's not really an issue. The battery life, it's an annoyance, but it's not that big of an issue. I would not say I give my 100% everybody should buy this because this is just the best thing in the world. I'm not that guy. But this is kind of a medium time frame, as in years, not months. But I'm also not saying years and years, like maybe 2 to 4 years, depending on this winch or something like that. I do believe that it's got the power. It's able to do what it needs to do. However, my concern is the cable. My concern is the tensioner, if I can get that figured out. And then the battery is just a stupid little whatever. So if you're looking to replace your winch with a beefier winch, if you're looking to upgrade to a certain degree as far as your setup goes. This does have a 6.6 horsepower motor. I would say it definitely is faster than my Warn winch. However, the Warn winch was on its way out. And so, you know, comparing apples to apples, a brand new winch versus a winch that's like just kicking and screaming every day. I don't know how fair that is. So take that as you will, but if you're needing something to just work for a certain amount of time, to buy you time to maybe save up to get the right winch you do want, to get a Warn winch, I would say for $600, 600 and some change, whatever it was, this is a very, very good band-aid, if not maybe a permanent setup for you, depending on what you're doing with the winch. You know, I'm pulling empty cans that are 3, 4, 5,000 pounds, and then the payload of what would go in that, up to 26K on this truck. So I've had no issues. Concrete, household items, you name it, everything has been pulled with this cable. I've inspected the cable on a regular basis as I'm wanting to make sure, hey, are we still good on this thing? There's some deformities in this cable, I believe, because there's been tight spots and then loose spots that have been wound up and caught within the spool. I am wanting to invest a little bit of time and effort into getting something to work right with this, to get a cable tensioner to work on the back end to hold pressure along every single layer, and then eventually replacing it with a Warn winch cable that was, I guess, made from Warn or whoever they get it from. Hopefully it's better than what I have here. So this is my review for this Smittybilt X2O Generation 2, I guess, wired, wireless, 6.6 horsepower winch. It works. It's functional. It's not exactly what I would want for the future. It's not my dream winch, but it's operational, and it's going to get me where I need to go for a decent amount of time, I believe. So let me know down in the comments below what you think. If this was a help to you, let me know. Hit the like button, subscribe. I would love to share more information if you want to know more about it. Hit me up if you want to see more details about it. But yeah, this is on Amazon. I'll put it in the link below. Again, this is not the biggest, the best, the everything. This is, in my opinion, it works. It's solid. It'll get you by for a while, but it's not my dream winch. So full disclaimer, the whole thing. I'm not trying to sell anybody down the river. I've got some issues with this, but it also, it has worked. I gotta give it to it. I mean, it just absolutely has done everything I've needed it to do. And I'm grateful for it compared to my other winch that was just completely ready to just kick the bucket. So have a great day, guys. Stay safe, and God bless.